Hi there, I'm Drew Badger, the world's #1 English fluency guide, and it is a pleasure to welcome you to another advanced listening practice lesson. Very quickly, if you are new to this series, I recommend you go back and watch our previous episodes in other series where you can focus on things like grammar or phrasal verbs, and you don't have to listen to me speaking too quickly like I do in this series. So if you're understanding that and you're ready to begin, let's get into the lesson. Today I got a really interesting email from a student, and it's kind of a part of a theme of emails that I tend to receive from people. And again, I talk about psychology a lot, so I'll be talking about psychology in this video. Well, the mail was talking about how this learner, she's really enjoying Master English Conversation, so I was happy to hear that. But one thing I was not so happy to hear about is that when she was younger, she heard that, if you had not learned English as a 2, 3, or 4-year-old child, then it's almost impossible to learn it as you get older. So this is what some experts have told people before. Now I have to be kind of careful about this topic because I am an expert about my particular thing, my particular field, which happens to be fluency, and specifically speaking confidence. So not just being able to speak the language, but how can you get out and meet people that you don't know and start conversations with them and be able to actually speak confidently. So that's my expertise in what I do. But what I like to be very specific about is that I only try to talk to learners about what they can do, and I really I don't know, maybe you can correct me if I'm wrong, if you've heard me say this before, but I rarely ever, if ever, tell people what they can't do. Now, even though I think I may be pretty smart, I know I am not, the most, amazing genius on the planet. So I'm sure there are plenty of things I don't know. And even with learning English, I'm always trying to learn new things. Every day I spend, I don't know how many hours a day I spend working and developing new techniques and creating new courses and all kinds of things, because I know there's always more we can learn. And even, most of the progress that happens in life, it could be maybe what different companies produce, other things like that. But most of the companies that produce things, or most of the new products that are produced, or, new classes or new lessons or new techniques for learning whatever those things are, most of them are small, slight additions or changes or slight improvements on things that are kind of already working pretty well. So that's why you see most new car commercials. It's, they're talking about a new sliding door that opens with the push of a button, or, some slightly larger amount of space in a car, something like that, because really there's not much difference. So I kind of feel bad for car companies because, unless they create a flying car or something like that, they're not really going to have much of something new and interesting to talk about. So yeah, I feel kind of bad for them. But talking about all these things about there's kind of a couple of different problems with this thing. Number one is that we see very clearly that the things you tell to children, so people that are very young, or even when you're just beginning to learn something. So even as an adult, let's say you're learning computer programming or something like that. If I tell you and you're, even 30 years old, I say, oh, you can't do this with a particular kind of code or something like that. Now, as soon as I tell you that, then your brain shuts off. You think, oh, okay, I don't have to think about that anymore because I know I can't do that particular thing. And that anytime you hear that word can't, it closes your mind off. And I believe I've talked about this before. I made another advanced listening practice lesson about this, where I was talking about the kind of language you should be using with your kids. So I was giving the example after I'd spoken with a friend of mine about, he actually just had his son. And so I have a daughter, and we were talking about how we'd be raising them. And we were talking about whether or not you should use curse words, so things like fuck and shit and other things like that, in front of your children. And we both agreed, well, maybe it's not such a bad idea to use those things, but there's obviously worse things you could do. But the more important thing was not really saying anything like, oh, you can't do that, like especially we don't have enough money, so we're not able to afford this kind of thing, or something like that. So you're really not supposed to be, or at least in my opinion, or our opinion when we were discussing it, instead of thinking about what you can or can't do, you begin with how. Or you begin with kind of like what you want, and then the how comes from that. So you decide, okay, I'd really like to purchase that expensive car, and maybe I don't have enough money right now, but if I begin thinking about how I can purchase something and really focus on the thing that I want, the path to getting that thing makes itself available to me. So I really felt bad, and I have to combat this combat. There are two pronunciations of this word, Combat is like the noun form of it, where you're talking about battling things, and the verb form is to combat something. So if you have to fight against something, like in my case, I have to fight against the psychological foundation of learning that most students have. So they're thinking, well, my expert or my teacher or my parent or somebody told me that because I have learned in this way, that I can't do this other thing over here. Now, people argue with me, it's okay. I understand if people want to say, oh, well, this particular thing doesn't work for me, or this thing, like, we're not able to do that or something like that. But more often than not, the people that say you can't do something have already closed off their mind to believing that something can be done. So I wanted to talk kind of quickly about this and really open your own mind up to this, just to give you the idea that, number one, if you're not all powerful or all knowing, that there are probably many things you know about, but many more that you don't know about. So it kind of behooves you, this word to behoove, it like means that, you should do something. I'm kind of recommending it to you, but it behooves you to keep your mind open and to try listening to new things, even if they sound a little bit strange or weird, because this is how we learn. And I often have to talk about this because the way I teach people is quite a bit different from what people are normally used to when they're thinking about learning a language. Anyway, so getting back to this story about the student. So she was saying, yeah, like, I enjoy the program, but it's been kind of a struggle for me, thinking that I couldn't learn even though I did well on tests, because I was thinking in my mind that, well, I guess it's not possible trying to learn the language as an adult in this way. And now she's seeing, using the program and just continuing to practice, she's changed the way she's thought, and now that's going to really help her really learn things in a new way and actually start seeing a lot more progress. So it begins with the psychological open-mindedness to keep your mind open and be willing to try new things. And then that's where the progress comes from. So once you believe you can do something, or at least you're open to the possibility of it, that's when things start to take off. Now, there are lots of experts in things, and basically the way expertise happens is that you develop, you do something a long time and you begin to learn like really, really tiny things about that, that it's a good thing because it teaches you a lot about how to do something. So I know all these like very, very tiny things about fluency, and like I don't even talk about, like 1/10 of all the things I know about it just from having practiced it and learning about new things. And like I said before, that's what I spend my time doing. It's just like a passion of mine to help people learn, and I really enjoy this problem of how can we take all the people on the planet and help them get fluent if they want to. So anyway, thinking about that, the kind of problem with expertise is that when you think you're figuring something out one way, and then something new comes along, you're first like, well, we should reject that thing because I thought it's not something that could go into my mind like that. So even as an expert myself, I have to be very careful about that, and that's exactly why I don't say, oh, you can't do that. So if a learner comes to me and says, oh, like, I really enjoy your method, but maybe I learned something from some other thing, I say, fantastic. That's great. I don't think that like my method is like the only way to learn the language and there's nothing else you can do. So lots of different people try different things, and I think that's fantastic. It's just a way that you should continue to keep your mind open, and that's the thing that's going to help you get fluent, because the more your mind is open, the more you're open to trying different things. And then like a scientist, you experiment, try a couple of different things, see what works, and you continue what does work and then discontinue what doesn't. So I'll just give you one quick story about this just to remind you that even something that seems like a very basic thing, people do it and they perfect it to a certain level and they think, well, I guess we can't get better than that. And then somebody comes along, so somebody appears and takes it to a new level. So that's what I'm trying to do with fluency as well. People are thinking like, well, we've developed all these methods and we kind of know what to do, and then I'm trying to do this up here to show that like it really is possible to learn things in a different way. Anyway, so this is a story from the Olympics. So there was this guy named Dick Fosbury, and Fosbury was like a high jumper. So you would like run and try to jump over the flat bar, and he developed a new way of jumping called the Fosbury flop. And so instead of running and kind of jumping over maybe with his legs up like that, something like that, he turned on his back and he kind of flipped over and arched his back over the bar, which enabled him to get over the bar a little bit higher. And when people saw that, they were like, wow, it's pretty cool. And that's what the standard thing most people do now. So it was different. So at first people are looking at that like, wow, is that legal? Can you do that? Can you jump over the bar that way? But, that was, again, at the beginning, people reject something new, and this is just the typical thing that happens. So if you are the kind of person that's open-minded about things like that, you could see something and think, wow, like, instead of just rejecting it, or thinking like, oh, we can't do that thing, even though you're seeing somebody actually doing it in front of your eyes, that's going to make your progress much slower, depending on, I guess, whatever it is you're interested in, whether that's fluency or something else. So in the case of Fosbury, there's kind of other elements around that made it possible for him to do something different. One of those, and maybe like, even me having to like research the story a little bit, but I just thought it was really fascinating, is that originally, like, people were doing the high jump, and when you jump on the other side, that really big, soft mat that they used was not there before. So you had to think about clearing the high bar, but also thinking about what you're going to do when you get over the bar and onto the other side. So either you had to land on your feet, or there's like a pit of sand or something, so you could actually injure yourself if you jump really high over that thing and then come down on the other side. So now people don't have to think about it, but at that time when people were just starting to introduce, okay, we're going to have this mat here, because really the focus is on jumping over the bar. It's like, who really cares what happens on the other side? So at that point, that made it available, or made it possible for people to think in a new way. So that's why I try to make things available or make things possible for you by creating different kinds of lessons, or just researching different things and figuring out, like, from other industries what people are using to solve different problems, and then I try to apply those in language learning. So all of these things, the whole point of this is, number one, be careful not only what you tell yourself, but also the things that you tell your children about you can't or whatever. So I talk about that, like, with my wife and, certainly my daughter. So I don't say, oh, you can't do that. I just think, like, how can you do that thing? And obviously Aria is still pretty young, but just getting into that habit of explaining what you can do or what you can't do, it's really important for kids. And then the other reason this is important is because you really want to have an open mind about what you can do, because the moment you think like, oh, this is the best we can do, somebody else will come along and create something better. So there's always a process of learning and getting much better. So the more you keep your mind open to those things, the more you can actually improve, or whatever that happens to be, whatever the industry or the hobby or the topic or whatever it is you're studying. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed this lesson. If you have, do give it a like. Remember to stay open-minded and share this video with other people. Feel free to comment if you want to disagree with me. That's just fine as well. But, really think about what you can do as opposed to what you can't. So get out there, think about what's possible, and I will see you in the next video. If you are not already a subscriber of the YouTube channel right here, the EnglishAnyone.com YouTube channel, I highly recommend you become a subscriber. Also, I've never bothered to mention this before, but if you've watched this video the whole way through and you did not like the video, tell me why. I know it's easy to click the like button or to click the don't like button, but either way, if you did like this video, let me know why. And if you did not like this video, well, let me know why again. I think it'd be interesting to know, because we're also, like I'm always saying, trying to improve, trying to learn a little bit more each time, trying to do a little bit better each time. Anyway, have a fantastic day. I will get out of this heat. Woo! Getting sweaty over here. And I will see you in the next video. Bye-bye. To continue learning, click on the link in this video to download Speak English Naturally, our free guide to speaking and sounding like a native English speaker. The guide reveals the 3 most important kinds of conversational English you must learn if you want to sound native, and will help you experience instant improvement in your fluency and speaking confidence. To download your free guide on a mobile device, click on the link in the upper right of this video. To download your free guide from a computer, click on the link in the lower right of this video. I look forward to seeing you in the guide.